Good morning, and on behalf of Ivy League Executive Director Robin Harris and her staff, welcome to the media and those in attendance to Ivy Madness. We appreciate your support and coverage of our student athletes, coaches, and programs. Our third team of the day is the second-seeded Yale Bulldogs. The Bulldogs come into tomorrow's game versus third-seeded Penn with an overall mark of 17-11, finished the Ivy League regular season with an 11-3 mark. Joining me on the stage is head coach James Jones, Jalen Gabadon, and Azar Swain. We'll start with an opening statement from Coach Jones and then move into questions for the student athletes before finishing up with questions for Coach. Coach Jones, welcome to Ivy Madness. Congratulations, and opening statement when you're ready, please.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody again. We're obviously excited to be here. We feel real good about our season. We played fairly well, especially throughout the Ivy League conference, and we feel good about where we placed, and we have another opportunity to win a championship. So, as I said, our guys are enthusiastic, and we feel confident that if we play well, we'll have a great chance, and we're looking forward to seeing if we can get it done.
Before we get in for questions for our student athletes, just a reminder for media to please state your name and your media affiliation before your first question. We'll start with questions for the student athletes.
Will McCormack, Yale Daily News. Azar, Jalen, you both took gap years last year for different reasons, but in part because you wanted to get to this weekend again. What does it feel like to walk in, see the setup, and finally be back here?
It's a long time coming. This is actually the first time I'll ever be playing in Ivy Madness. I was hurt the first two times we ever did it, and last year, obviously, with COVID, it was canceled. And so I'm just really excited. I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years now, so ready to get going.
Yeah, coming into this year, I'd say, I had extremely high expectations for myself and the group. So getting back to here was one of our long-term goals. So it's great to be in this position and be, this close to having a chance to play in March Madness. Many teams don't even get the opportunity to compete for March Madness. So we're just trying to take full advantage of the moment. And like Jalen said, it's been a long time coming.
Other questions for student athletes?
Azar, I think this is probably more for you. Jonathan Tannenwald, the Philadelphia Inquirer. What do you teach the freshmen in particular about this weekend and what it ends up being like? And yeah. I'm sure, James, you can probably, I'll ask you the same in a minute, but, to teach them about what it's like.
Yeah, I think a lot of the teaching and the preparation has already been done. At this point, there's not much you can tell the guys at this point. You just want to encourage them to be aggressive, be themselves, not get caught up in anything other than this is another game with a familiar opponent. For those young guys, that's what they need to be focused on, and being fully present in the moment. And a lot of the teaching and preparation has been working towards this weekend. So now it's just time to be ourselves and enjoy the moment.
Any other questions for our student athletes?
Azar, you and Jalen played, or Jalen didn't play, but you were in front of the home crowd last time we had Ivy Madness and sort of got their support, and we were talking about that recently. What is it like being close to home now, and are you expecting sort of a similar bump from maybe family and friends who will be here this weekend?
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be hard to replicate that feeling at Yale, playing for the championship, to go to March Madness. It's a different feel, and obviously you have more people you're close with there with you. Here we're still on the road. For me, I'm not thinking of it like a homecoming or anything. We still have basketball to be played, and I anticipate, since it's a neutral court, we'll have a decent amount of support to lean on. But yeah. It's going to be hard to replicate that feeling of actually playing at home for a chance to go to March Madness. It's just a little different when you're in that moment.
Any other questions for our student athletes before I let them go? Okay. Thank you, guys. Let the student athletes leave. Best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Give them a second, and then let questions for Coach Jones. Questions for Coach?
Hey, James. In the past, we would ask, "Oh, does last year matter, or does history matter coming into a conference tournament?" Having not had one for 2 years now, does it all get thrown out the window, or are there things from the past that you rely on?
Well, I think there's some familiarity in terms of a conference tournament, and having gone through several of them in the past, there's some things that you can think about and can lean on. But, all that does go out the window when the ball gets tossed up and you're ready to go. Once you've gone through it and been successful, you figure out how to prep for it and get yourself ready. I actually look back to 2019, the last time we actually had the tournament, and I looked at my practice plans and what I did for prior to the week before we played. And in my mind, what I was going to do was very similar to what we did. But again, you have those experiences, and experience always helps you.
Rob Brown, Ivy Hoops Online. Looking at the two games against Penn, the most telling difference in the stat lines were Jordan Dingle had 31 in the first game and 10 in the second. What did you do in the second game, and how do you hope to replicate that tomorrow?
Well, I would say that is from the Penn's perspective, that would be the biggest difference in the game, not from the Yale perspective. Obviously Jordan Dingle is a tremendous player. And you have to guard him with your team, not just one player at a time. So I thought in the first game, we put our defensive players on an island, so to speak, and he was able to do some stuff one-on-one. He was extremely good and efficient in that first game, everywhere but from the three-point arc, where I actually gave us a kiss of death because I looked at a stat line and I said, oh, Jordan's 0 for 8, and he made his ninth, which was a killer. We need to make sure that we're going to guard him and the rest of the Penn Quakers as a team, as opposed to one guy at a time. So we did a better job of that in the second game, and that's what happens with familiarity. You see guys, and you understand what they're trying to do offensively, and you just try to guard them as a team.
Hi, Coach. Jen Hadfield with the Next. I'm just curious, with the Yale women's team also being here in the tournament, how do you guys plan to support them, and will you be in the crowd tonight?
Well, we certainly support our women's basketball team as much as possible. As it is, their game kind of coincides with our dinner plans in terms of being able to give our guys a meal and have them ready for the next day. So we will be following their game and rooting them on and wishing them luck. Coach Goof is a really good friend of mine personally, and I've passed along my well wishes to her as she has to me. And the young women on her basketball program, players are pretty tight with, so we will be obviously following every point of that game as much as we can.
James, the standings say that the 11-3 to 9-5 to 7-7, and there ended up being some fairly sizable gaps in the standings from 2 to 3 to 4 this year. Knowing the teams as well, do you think that the differences between the three of them are that big, or are they closer than that?
The last part I didn't hear.
Do you think that do you think that quality-wise the gaps between the teams are that big, or are they closer than that?
Probably not. I look at the Princeton team, and there were 3 games that they were extremely fortunate to win. And, they ended up, Alonco hit a 3 to beat Cornell at Princeton. They have 2 fouls to give against Harvard, and Harvard has 2 fouls to give, and Tosan drives in and gets a layup at the end of that game. And then there was another close one that could have gone either way. So those things are going to happen, and sometimes the sun shines on you, and sometimes it doesn't. So in terms of the separation between the 3 teams, or the 4 teams, or the 8 teams in the league, it's probably not as wide as the standings would represent. And I look at these 4 teams that are here now, and I would suspect that each of the 4 teams feel good about an opportunity, can see them having a path to win a championship.